Richard, it's always a pleasure, my friend. Good to see you in the new year. I think
Yeah.
this is, maybe the third year we've been doing these, and it's been great to get to know you and to continue to learn from you. I feel like every time we talk, I have some great takeaway, whether it's a new book or a new way to love my wife, So thank you for that. And today, another great topic. You always come up with these amazing holistic topics that really are overarching and have direct impact on how we lead, but also just how we live. And that's what I love about talking to you. There was a topic that we talked about before hopping on that was really about leadership qualities. And we talk a lot about how to lead, how to become a better leader. We talk about these things all the time, but you had this interesting slant, which was which ones can be taught and which qualities can't be taught. Tell us more.
Well, Carson, and it's something that I'm actually teaching on and mulling over in my mind. I'm certainly not an expert at it, and I don't want to be. I want to be a continuous learner. You and I never want to be the smartest guy in the room, right? We always want to be
Not
the guy
anymore.
in the, yeah, yeah. There was a time where we probably did. But you think about leadership traits and leadership qualities. There are several things, and there's hundreds of books lining every bookshelf on how to be a great leader. And so people buy those books and they read them, and hopefully they get put some tools in their tool belt to become a better leader. But I wonder sometimes, are there things that simply can't be taught? You either have them or you don't. And I think about, like, every great leader has to have vision. Absolutely, you got to have vision. But can you teach someone how to have vision? I wonder sometimes if simple things like vision or integrity, every great leader has to have integrity. Otherwise, you don't want to follow them. You don't have any belief in them. But is integrity something that is taught? And I think I make up this cute little rhyme. There are some things in life that we can teach to others. There are some things that can be taught. Other things have to be caught.
Mm.
So, in other words, if I see Carson leading with integrity, and maybe I don't have integrity as part of one of my values, can that be caught from him? And I go, ooh, that is something I need to work on in my life to have more integrity, to be more believable, so that my team will follow me. I just think it's an interesting concept. What can be taught and what is not necessarily teachable when it comes to leadership?
It's exceptionally powerful, poignant, and apropos per usual. I've actually, and I shared this with you, Richard, I've been doing a lot of introspection. It's that time of year, it's a new year. I just had a birthday a few months back. Um, and starting to just think about, what is my why? What
Oh,
drives me? What fuels me? What makes me tick? And I realize some of the things that I have that are good qualities that maybe are innate, like my drive and my ambition, things that you can't teach,
sure.
but also like some of the skills that you do pick up. And I want to focus too on some of those things that, we do spend a considerable amount of time teaching. I spend a considerable amount of time teaching and also how we use some of those skills that can't be taught to inform the ones that can. Like you
Oh,
hit on vision, super important. So, when I think about vision, I did an interview on a show years ago with Annette Bracken, who's a local business consultant, right?
yeah.
And she had this mentality, this philosophy that she talked about seeing around corners. And I adapted it in my process around vision because a lot of times as a leader, some of the biggest mistakes I'd make is I'd head in sometimes like a bull in a china shop. I felt like I knew what to do. I jumped in because I had that drive and that ambition that was almost unparalleled, but I'd hit that blind spot or
Ooh.
I would hit that obstacle and not anticipate it, and it would jar my process. But going in, eyes wide open, taking a balcony view approach, and frankly, working because of sometimes the experiences that we have. I mean, I'm getting up there in years. I've had 25
Oh,
years
come
of
on.
experience in sales and leadership. And so, when I look at these things, I look at these situations that might have caused me to take pause or get excitable 20 years ago. Now I can keep that steady hand on the wheel and I can almost anticipate where these blind spots may be. I can help my team see around corners based on we've been here before. And so I think those are the types of things where that can also help inform strategic thinking. Because that's another area where before I had gone in and created very strategic relationships, partnerships, nine-figure deals, I
Sure.
had never done those things. So
Hmm.
I had my drive, I had my ambition, I had some semblance of EQ, and I had some other things working in my favor. So I could kind of go in there and like feeling in the dark. But the way I like to envision it is some of these things that can't be taught can help inform your passion and your passion and desire and your enthusiasm for learning the things that can. I think that there has to be a drive, an intrinsic drive to learn everything you can that makes you more complete as a leader.
Yeah, and you mentioned EQ or emotional intelligence, which is a hot topic again, it seems like in 2025. But I think that leadership part gets overlooked because our blind spots, great, great word picture, the blind spots that we have as leaders, we truly need other people to help us see those
Mm.
blind spots because, and as leaders, it's hard, and a young leader, if we're talking to young leaders, let us encourage you. Uh, because blind spots aren't easy as a young leader because you have so much drive, you have so much ambition, some of those things that are
Why they
naturally
call it
innate.
blind ambition, right?
Blind ambition sounds like a great title for a movie. And for us, recognizing that all of us have those blind spots and allowing others to share with us what some of those blind spots are. But you really touched on it when you talked about EQ because that's that self-awareness or that self-knowledge and the empathy and all of the things that come into play with emotional intelligent leaders that start understanding I don't have all the answers and I may not have the skill set, but I can't be taught when it comes to influence. Me, I want to learn how to be a better influencer. That seems to be a key trait among great leaders. So, who can I go to help me learn how to be a better influencer? Because maybe that's a blind spot area, or gratitude, or some of the best leaders I know of. Oh my God! See,
That's where you can go, my friend.
it's so true.
Diving into
I,
the classics. I cleaned out my office. See all this intrinsic stuff. I cleaned out my office and I got that back on my desk and I'm, trying to dive into a few passages. You hit on something so important here, Richard, about the empathy and emotional intelligence element. And just similarly to some of the other leadership qualities that can't be taught. When I think about like that innate passion and drive and energy and enthusiasm,
yeah,
the EQ, being authentic and exuding authenticity in what you do, that can't be taught. And
no,
frankly, the vision piece that you hit on first. Now, the beauty in all of this, though, is that we can, I almost envision this like my dad's old stereo, right?
there you
You
go.
can still twist and tune the knobs. You can
Yeah,
find balance in these things. You don't want to be dominated by your emotions, right?
sure.
But you do want to make sure that they exist and that you give space for emotions to be had, that you're acknowledging the emotions of others. I realized for a very long time that when things would go amiss, I would just quickly take it, dismiss it, move on. I can't do that as a husband, as a dad, as a
Oh,
leader, because everybody processes these things in different ways. I can't just tell somebody, "Hey, don't worry about it. Let's keep moving." I can't do that as a leader, and I honestly I would find myself doing that. And so I think that we can find balance, and we can continue to find ways where we can enhance those untrainable qualities.
and I like what you said there because and as we're even bantering back and forth, and I'm thinking about some of my favorite leaders in my life that have led me over the years, did they have all of Harvard Business Review's top 12 qualities of a leader. No, they didn't. They had maybe three or four, but they were willing to learn and they were willing. There's an old saying, experience is the greatest teacher. So if there's some young leaders that are listening to this podcast, I think I would tell them to get some experiences underneath your belt, some of those failures, be willing to go back and say, you know what, on this, I think I really screwed up. And number one, I want to apologize. Number two, I want to tell you it won't ever happen again. But number three, I have really learned some things from you on this. And I just want to tell you, thank you for pouring into my leadership. That kind of grace and humility. Number one, you even heard me probably swallow really hard. It takes you to swallow, but it
Yeah.
also takes a little bit of getting out of the way of yourself and asking for again the feedback, but not being afraid to say, you know what, I had to do this to my grandson. I went in and apologized to them. Hey, I got a little bit coarse with you over this, and this wasn't your fault. And I just want you to know that even G Diddy, your grandpa, he screws up every once in a while. So I just want to apologize to you.
My gosh. I mean, you've practically got me speechless. I think about this, Richard, and I understand. Like, I look back and you're thinking about young leaders, and sometimes the odds are so stacked against folks when they come in, and we feel so much pressure. We put pressure on ourselves. And until you've been in that pressure cooker, you don't really know like how to navigate it. I having the years and experiences under my belt, I know what I can tune out as noise. I know how to answer the different masters that I serve. But on the same token, like until I got to that point, I wasn't at that point. So you feel like you're pulled in a lot of different directions. I was very insecure as a young leader. So I put this armor on myself and I acted like I was invincible because the signals that I was getting from elsewhere was that I needed to be invincible. I came up in a culture that was kind of an old boys club and it was
Yeah.
very like rooted in Wall Street. I mean, I kid you not. I had a manager in the early 2000s that would call me every morning and like quote Gordon Gekko to me. I
Oh
mean,
yeah.
that's where I was living, right? So like you don't tell your leadership vulnerable pieces or like insights into your personal life because they'll be used against you
Oh,
the same
100%.
week if you do. And so that's where I came up. And so there was a lot of challenges. I almost felt this compulsion to toot my own horn, to be
Sure.
seen, and I was doing it in the wrong ways because of that pressure, because I didn't know how to stand the test of time as a leader. I was doing a lot of the right things because of the things that can't be taught. We come to the table with these tools, right? But they might be blunt instruments. And until we can sharpen our axe or make sure that we sharpen these tools, we can't fine tune them into the things that can be trained, like excellent time management or
Yeah.
discipline and how we lead and coach and how we show up and how we meet people where they need to be met and how we uncover the why of everybody that we touch. Once you uncover what makes somebody tick, I spend so much of my time now helping people that trying to help them understand the things that I wish I had known when I was in their role that nobody showed me. But I went through it. I found it the hard way. And so that's a lot of times the value that I can bring to my team is helping show them these things that I've learned and, helping them understand like the complexities of how they get paid, how they take their career by the horns, how they master their career trajectory, how they master networking and creating relationships. And so I think it's a call to action for all leaders to figure out like what are these unique inherent strengths and superpowers that I bring to the table, and then how can I, in the playing field that I'm given, how can I most successfully and impactfully use them to lift everybody else around me? And I think that will help turn the knobs and bring balance to some of these unique areas that can be taught.
Well, Warren Buffett, I heard this story secondhand, but
You
Warren
didn't hear
Buffett
it from Warren?
no, not firsthand, but from somebody who attended the conference that he was speaking at. They were, it was the Q&A time, and he was up on stage doling out all kinds of wisdom. And the question came up, these are a lot of young leaders. There's about 1,000 young leaders in front of you, Warren, that are sitting here. What advice would you give to these young leaders? Of course, everybody in the audience gets out their pen and pad, and they've got their phone up recording. He's, and they're expecting some kind of financial advice. Well, this is what I would do with my money. This is what I would do with X, Y, and Z, or make sure that you diversify, whatever,
Yeah.
whatever the typical thing that you would expect from Warren Buffett. And he said, if I can instill two things in all of these people that are sitting here, I would tell them, learn how to communicate and learn how to connect.
Mm.
And that's what you're talking about, Carson. The two key ingredients that can be taught is learning how to connect with other people. What's your communication style? How do you like to be communicated with? What's your form of communication? What are some of your dislikes? What are some of your stressors in your life? What are some of your motivators? How can I motivate you if I don't know what your own personal motivators are?
Yeah.
So how to connect with individuals and how to communicate. Both of those things can be taught and are key.
I have, and I mentioned this earlier. I have Simon Sinek on the brain because I've been listening to his audio book for Start with Why, and it's amazing to me to really simplify it. It all is about how do you start with why? How do you look across the table from someone or across a video call or whatever it is and understand like what's the motivation? What's the why behind the person I'm talking to? I was on a customer call with a new executive maybe a couple of months ago. And I asked him, I said, it's the first time we'd ever chatted.
Oh,
And a lot of people in my position would probably go in and, try to look for sales opportunities. That's the last thing on my mind. I actually said, I was like, you joined this organization. What motivated you to come here and what do you want your legacy to be? And then I just listened. I mean, they went on for almost 10 minutes and it was phenomenal. I mean, they told me everything that I would need to know in order to make them a hero, not only in their own organization, but to really like, how can I best be a catalyst for this person's success? And now we're going down the road on multiple fronts that will result in a deal this year. It opened up some new paths. My point in saying all that is if you focus on the connection, everything else will take care of itself. I've never worried about a number a day in my life.
man.
And I think as you think about the skills that you bring, but also the ones that you want to fine tune and learn and acquire and assimilate into your arsenal, think about building trust and inspiring loyalty at the heart of it. That's what Simon Sinek talks about in Start with Why. He talks about great brands that have ultimately, rather than just following what the data suggests and done what customers claim they want, it's how do we create a culture? How do we build community? How do we inspire people? Like, you look at an organization like Apple, they have a massive following and they've created streaming services, devices that a lot of other organizations do, but people will go to them because they've created this brand, this persona. They've inspired loyalty to their brand. Think about how they did that. They really spoke to the people that follow them and buy in. Another thing is leaders, like being able to navigate conflict. Once you've
Oh,
established trust, and you and I have talked about having challenging conversations,
yeah.
they become a lot less challenging when that person knows that you've got their best interests at heart and that you're giving them genuine guidance and feedback on how they can get better. Those types of things help you create a culture of collaboration, create a team culture, and inspire others to follow you because they know that you're out for them and not yourself. You're the hero maker and not the hero. And as well, like other things that you pick up over time, that ability to adapt and change without losing focus. Change is inevitable. Things change around you all the time, but there is focus in the storm. The things that I would have reacted to very swiftly in my 20s, now I just even keel. And even while people are freaking out all around, it gives you this vision. You are eyes wide open in what where others are potentially blind. And so I think that's where we've got to continue to focus. And EQ is almost like the big heart of all of what we've
Oh,
discussed today.
100%. Well, I could have this conversation all day long with you because we speak the same language, but I'll just end by saying this because what you're talking about is, it, and people laugh at me all the time because I say this phrase in just about every one of my teaching sessions. At the end of the day, we cannot forget that every one of us are human beings first, not human doings.
Mm,
We do things every day to get a paycheck, and that's what we do. We're a programmer, or we're a mid-level manager, or we're a leader of an organization. That's what we do. But we forget that we're human beings first, human doing second. And you're talking about tapping into that individual. Hey, tell me about, when you leave here, what do you want to be your legacy? My gosh, you're tapping into that person as a human being, what's driving them. And leadership, a lot of leadership skills can be taught. But I believe, Carson, there's a handful of leadership skills that have to be caught.
mm.
And you catch those from being around other great leaders.
Couldn't have ended it better myself. Richard, I always enjoy these. Thank you for giving me and our audience some things to think about today.
Thanks for letting me be a part, Carson. I love these conversations.
Always. You and me both. We'll see you next time.